My parents threw me out for reporting my star QB brother for assault. They had no idea I had proof of every crime they'd covered up for years, and I was about to burn their perfect world to the ground. My parents kicked me out and disowned me for calling 911 on my star quarterback brother. They said I ruined his future by reporting the assault on his girlfriend. They had no idea I had the one thing that could destroy their perfect family forever, and when I was done, none of us would ever be the same. Growing up, my brother Ethan was a god. Star quarterback, full-ride scholarship to a D1 school already lined up, the golden boy of our town. I was just his loser little brother, the one who didn't understand how the world worked. At least, that's what my parents told me every time Ethan did something messed up. Like the time he shattered my collarbone during a friendly game of catch, and my dad told the ER doctor I'd fallen off the roof of the shed. Or the countless times he'd borrow my stuff, and it would turn up broken, and my mom would just sigh and say, "Stop being so sensitive, Leo. You're going to ruin his focus." Their entire world, our entire family, was built around protecting Ethan's future. My feelings, my safety, my anything, it was all just background noise. But last Tuesday, I walked in on something I couldn't ignore. I came home early from school, a brutal migraine pounding behind my eyes, and heard screaming from Ethan's room. It was his girlfriend, Chloe. She was sobbing, begging him to stop. My first instinct, drilled into me since birth, was to turn around, go to my room, and pretend I heard nothing. But her cries were different this time. They were terrified. I crept to his door and pushed it open just a crack. The images burned into my brain. Ethan had her pinned against the wall, one hand clamped around her throat, her face turning a terrifying shade of purple. She was clawing at his arm, making these horrible, choked sounds. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hit the record button, but I did. I filmed for maybe 30 seconds of irrefutable proof, before I backed away and dialed 911. Ethan was arrested that night and released on bail by morning, thanks to a hefty check from my father and a few friendly calls to his golf buddies at the station. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my life being thrown into garbage bags. My mom was screaming, her face blotchy and twisted with a rage I'd never seen directed at anyone but me. "You've destroyed this family. Do you know what you've done to his future? To our future?" My dad just stood there, his face cold as ice. "You have 1 hour to get your things. You are no longer our son." I tried to reason with him. I don't know why. "This isn't the first time he's hurt her," I pleaded. My mom let out a sound somewhere between a hiss and a laugh. "She's a gold digger, Leo, and you just helped her ruin him." So there I was, 17 years old, sitting on the curb with 2 garbage bags of my stuff, watching the moving truck of my life pull away. That's when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. It was Sophia, Chloe's older sister. She'd heard about the police report and wanted to know what happened. I was crying too hard to speak, and I guess she pieced it together because she just said, "Send me your location. I'm coming to get you." The drive to her tiny apartment was silent. The second we walked in, she just collapsed on her sofa, hugging a pillow and sobbing. I'm so sorry," she kept repeating. Chloe never told me how bad it was. I should have known. Here I was, homeless and disowned, and I was the one trying to comfort her. It was in that moment, watching this grown woman fall apart over her sister's pain, that I realized this was bigger than just my family. That's when her phone rang. She put it on speaker. It was Chloe, her voice a terrified whisper. "Soph, he won't stop texting me. He says if I don't drop the charges, he's going to release our videos, the private ones." Sophia's face went white. "He what?" But before she could respond, my blood ran cold. Chloe's voice cracked as she added, "And he says he knows where you live. He knows I'm probably here." Sophia looked at me, then back at her phone, her mind clearly racing. "Leo recorded him," she said suddenly. "We have proof." There was silence on the other end, then Chloe's whispered, "Leo has a video." "Yeah," I finally spoke up, my voice hoarse. "The whole thing. Him choking you. You begging him to stop. Everything." Sophia stood up, pacing her apartment like a caged tiger. "The lawyer said we needed someone from the inside," she muttered, more to herself than to us. "Someone who could prove the parents knew." She stopped and stared at me, her eyes locking onto mine with a new, terrifying intensity. "Leo," she said, her voice low and serious. "What else do you know? About Ethan? About what your parents have covered up?" I thought about all the hushed phone calls, the late-night arguments, the checks my mom wrote to make problems go away. I thought about the fear I'd seen in the eyes of other girls. And I looked her straight in the eye and said, I know everything. Sophia's fingers flew across her keyboard, her face illuminated by the glow of the laptop screen. Chloe was still on speakerphone, her shaky breathing a constant reminder of the terror Ethan had inflicted. In Sophia's small, quiet apartment, a war room was born. Leo, send me that video now, Sophia commanded, her voice all business. And anything else you have. Old texts, photos, anything that shows Ethan's behavior or your parents covering for him. I started with the video, watching the upload bar crawl across my screen. Each percentage point felt like a small victory against the years of silence. Then, I dug deeper. I remembered the checks. 3 separate times, I'd found my mom in the kitchen, her checkbook out, whispering into the phone about making unfortunate situations disappear. She thought I was too stupid or too scared to understand, so I'd snapped pictures with my phone, not knowing why at the time, just feeling a gut-level need to document the secrets that held our family together. I sent them to Sophia. Holy crap, she breathed, her eyes wide as she opened the images. Chloe, look at these dates. The checks were for staggering amounts, $15,000, $25,000, $40,000. Is this when? Sophia started. Yeah, Chloe's voice was barely a whisper. The first one, that was after homecoming our junior year. He got angry. The second was last spring, after that party at Ben's house. My stomach lurched. There were other girls. Other times Ethan had exploded, and my parents had simply written a check, purchasing silence and burying the truth. This was so much bigger than I ever imagined. Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. My landlord, she said. He got a call. An anonymous tip about me harboring a runaway minor. That's my parents, I said, the words tasting like ash. They're trying to force me back, to control the narrative. Like hell they are, Sophia muttered, typing furiously. She was already on the phone with a lawyer she knew, a guy named Mr. Davies who specialized in domestic violence cases. While she laid out the situation, I kept digging, uploading everything I had. Screenshots of Ethan bragging in our family group, chat about putting some girl in her place. Photos of the bruises on my own arms from when Ethan would grab me too hard during his playful roughhousing. Even a short audio clip I'd recorded on my phone of my dad telling me to stop being so damn dramatic when I'd showed him a black eye Ethan had given me. Suddenly, a loud, insistent pounding on the apartment door made all 3 of us jump. Sophia checked the peephole, and her face went white. It's the police. My heart hammered against my ribs. My parents had actually done it. Sophia opened the door to 2 officers, one older and tired-looking, the other young and visibly uncomfortable. We're looking for a runaway minor, ma'am, the older one said, his eyes scanning the apartment. Leo Thompson. We have a report he might be here. He's not a runaway, Sophia said, her voice shaking but firm. He was kicked out by his parents. I stepped into view, my hands clenched at my sides. I'm right here, and I'm not going back. The older officer sighed, a look of paternal disappointment on his face. Look, I know the Thompsons. They're a good family. I'm sure this is all a big misunderstanding. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Is that what you said about all the other girls Ethan hurt? The ones my parents paid off to keep quiet. Both officers went still. The younger one glanced at his partner. What girls? He asked. The girls Ethan assaulted, I said, my voice gaining strength. The ones my parents wrote checks to so they'd stay quiet. Jessica Miller after homecoming. Emily Chen after that party. I have the pictures of the checks. I have a video of him choking his girlfriend just 2 days ago. Is that the good family, you know? The older officer's face hardened. That's a serious accusation, son. It's not an accusation, Sophia cut in, stepping forward. It's evidence. And we've already provided it to our lawyer. He'll be filing charges today. The cops exchanged a look, the cogs clearly turning in their heads. This wasn't the simple runaway case they'd expected. They took our information and left, warning me that my parents might file more formal charges. I didn't care. The first crack in my family's perfect facade had appeared. Later that day, Chloe got a call from Emily Chen. We all listened on speaker as Emily, her voice trembling, confirmed everything. The check, the threats from my parents, the way they'd paid for her silence with a supposed scholarship fund for her brother's medical bills. They said it would ruin Ethan's future, Emily cried. They made me feel like it was my fault. While they talked, my own sister, Maya, texted me. Mom and Dad are at an emergency team meeting with the coach. The house is empty for the next 2 hours. A cold, clear idea formed in my mind. The ledgers, I said to Sophia. My mom keeps a second set of books for the family business. She's always been meticulous. I bet the payoffs are in there, hidden as business expenses. Leo, Mr. Davies said not to do anything illegal, Sophia warned. It's not illegal if I still live there, right? I reasoned. They kicked me out, but they haven't formally evicted me. Legally, I'm still a resident. A slow smile spread across Sophia's face. Take Chloe's phone, she said. Record everything. If anyone asks, you were just there to get the rest of your things. The key felt foreign in my hand as I unlocked the front door to my childhood home. 20 minutes ago, I had been a homeless kid on his friend's sister's floor. Now, I was an infiltrator on a mission, a ghost walking through the halls of a life that was no longer mine. The house was eerily silent, filled with the ghosts of shouted arguments and forced smiles. I moved quickly, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, heading straight for my parents' bedroom. The safe was hidden in their walk-in closet, tucked behind a row of my mother's expensive shoes. My fingers, slick with sweat, fumbled with the combination. Ethan's birthday. Of course. It was always about Ethan. The heavy door clicked open, and there they were, 3 leather-bound ledgers, stacked neatly. I pulled them out, my hand shaking as I flipped through the pages. It was all there, recorded in my mother's precise, elegant handwriting. Names, dates, and dollar amounts that represented silence pain. Jessica Miller, homecoming incident, $25,000. Emily Chin, party damages, $40,000. Olivia Williams, misunderstanding, $15,000. So many names, so many misunderstandings. Before I could process the depth of their deception, a voice from the doorway made me jump. What are you doing here? I spun around to find my 14-year-old sister, Maya, standing there, her arms crossed. Her face was a mask of cold indifference, but her eyes, usually so full of life, looked tired in a way that made my chest ache. They told everyone you attacked Ethan, she said flatly. Said you've always been jealous of him, that you made up lies to ruin his future. You know that's not true, Maya. She held my gaze for a long moment, then her facade crumbled. I know Jake hurts people, she whispered, her voice cracking. I've always known. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. I heard Chloe screaming that day. I saw you call 911, and I watched them throw your stuff out like garbage. My own fear and anger were suddenly eclipsed by a wave of protectiveness for her, for the little sister who had been forced to witness this ugliness alone. She told me Ethan had been showing people an edited version of the video I took, something his friend Ben had helped him cook up to make it look like Chloe was just play acting, that it was all a game. The sickness in my stomach intensified. They weren't just covering it up, they were rewriting history. Just as I shoved the ledgers into my backpack, we heard the front door slam. They were back early. Go to your old room, Maya whispered, pushing me down the hall. Wait for my signal. Before I could argue, she was gone. I crept into my former bedroom, now stripped bare of my existence, and listened as the voices rose from downstairs. It was my parents, Ethan, and his coach, Coach Peterson. Why are you home from school? Mom's voice, sharp with suspicion. I felt sick, Maya lied smoothly. Yeah, well, you look like someone who chokes girls, so I guess looks can be deceiving, Maya retorted to Ethan. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos. I heard Ethan's voice, low and dangerous, followed by my dad's booming command for Maya to apologize. But Maya didn't back down. Standing at the top of the stairs, she became a warrior. Why? Because he's the golden boy? Because you spent years covering up for what he really is. She listed the names from the ledgers, her voice ringing with a righteous fury I'd never heard from her before. Ethan lunged, and I couldn't hide anymore. I burst out of the room, shouting, "Let her go." He shoved Maya against the wall and came for me, his face a mask of pure rage. You ruined everything, he snarled. He swung, but years of being his personal punching bag had taught me his moves. I ducked, and his fist connected with the drywall. While he was cursing, I saw Maya, her phone up, recording every second. He grabbed me by the throat, slamming me against the wall, just as he'd done to Chloe. You want to know what I do to people who cross me? He hissed, his grip tightening, my vision starting to speckle with black dots. My parents and his coach just stood there, frozen, watching their golden boy self-destruct. Suddenly, Ethan's phone rang. The sound was so jarring it made his grip loosen. He pulled it out, his face going white as he listened. What do you mean you're not? You can't do this to me, Ben. He screamed into the phone, then hurled it against the wall, shattering it. Ben, his tech-savvy friend. He had backed out. He wasn't going to edit the videos anymore. Jake turned on me, his eyes wild. This is your fault. You turned him against me. No, Maya said, her voice steady as she held up her phone. You did that yourself. And I have you on camera admitting to everything. He lunged for her, but Dad finally snapped out of his stupor, grabbing Ethan's arm. Enough. You're making things worse. Worse. Ethan laughed, a hysterical, broken sound. How can it get any worse? My life is over. My mom, ever the fixer, rushed forward. We'll fix this. We always fix things. How? I asked, finding my voice. Pay Maya off, too? How much is your daughter's silence worth, Mom? We pushed past them, Maya and I, a united front for the first time in our lives. As we reached the door, Ethan's voice followed us, a low, venomous promise. I'll kill you for this. Maya's phone caught it all. Outside, Ben's truck was parked in the driveway. He got out, hands raised in surrender. I'm not here to fight, he said, looking exhausted. He explained that he couldn't be a part of it anymore, that seeing the fear in Chloe's eyes on that video had finally broken through his loyalty to Jake. Then he handed me a flash drive. Jake's been recording things, too, he said. Bragging sessions with the team, talks with your parents about the payoffs. I was his tech guy. I have everything. He got in his truck and drove away, leaving Maya and me standing in the driveway, armed with the truth. As we were about to leave, my phone rang. It was the school principal. Mr. Thompson, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I'm calling to inform you that you're being suspended pending an investigation into the malicious rumors you've been spreading about one of our star student athletes. They were coming for me. The system was fighting back. The principal's voice echoed in my head, a smug, bureaucratic drone attempting to drown out the truth. But her threats felt hollow now. I had the ledgers in my backpack, the flash drive from Ben clutched in my hand, and my sister standing beside me. We were armed, and we were done being afraid. We drove back to Sophia's apartment, which had transformed from a cozy refuge into a bustling command center. The air buzzed with a nervous, electric energy. Chloe was there, her eyes puffy but resolute. Sitting with her was a girl I vaguely recognized, Jessica Miller, the name from the first check in my mom's ledger. She looked terrified but was nodding along as Chloe spoke. Mr. Davies, the lawyer, was at the kitchen table, his face grim as he talked on the phone. And in the corner, speaking quietly with Sophia, was an older woman in a police uniform. That's my aunt, Chloe explained, seeing my confusion. Detective Patricia Santos. She's been investigating the Westfield football program for months. Your evidence might be exactly what she needs to blow this whole thing wide open. I handed over the ledgers and the flash drive. The room fell silent as Detective Santos plugged the drive into her laptop. Page after page of my mother's meticulous records, video after video of Ethan's monstrous behavior, audio clips of his bragging. It all spilled out, a digital avalanche of our family's darkest secrets. This is comprehensive, the detective said, her voice a mix of disgust and professional satisfaction. While she and Mr. Davies sorted through the mountain of evidence, my parents launched their counteroffensive. My phone, which was still miraculously active, started blowing up. Dad left a voicemail, his voice stripped of its usual bluster, replaced by a cold, transactional tone. Son, you want to play hardball? Fine. Your college fund is gone. Your health insurance is terminated as of tomorrow. Let's see how long you last in the real world without us. The threats were meant to break me, to force me back into my box. But looking around that crowded apartment, at the faces of the girls Ethan had hurt, at the determined set of Sophia's jaw, I felt anything but broken. I felt powerful. The news broke that evening. A local investigative reporter, tipped off by Mr. Davies, ran a story. Star quarterback arrested on multiple assault charges. Westfield High football program under investigation. Ethan's smiling, all-American mugshot was plastered everywhere. Suddenly, the floodgates opened. Two more of Ethan's victims, girls who had been too scared to speak up, saw the story and contacted Detective Santos. The team of survivors was growing. But the system that had protected Ethan for so long wasn't going to collapse without a fight. The next day, we got a call from Emily Chen's frantic brother. Ethan had somehow made bail, a suspiciously low amount for the charges he was facing, and Emily was missing. She'd left for school that morning and never arrived. Her car was gone, and she wasn't answering her phone. A cold dread washed over me. While the detective put out an APB, Maya got a text from a friend at school. Ethan's here, in the parking lot. He has a girl with him. I think it's Emily Chen. She looks scared. We were in Sophia's car in minutes, racing toward the school. The parking lot was a scene of controlled chaos. Ethan's massive truck was parked near the main entrance. Emily was visible in the passenger seat, her face pale and streaked with tears. Ethan stood by the driver's door, scanning the area like a king surveying his crumbling kingdom. "Stay in the car," Sophia ordered. But I was already out, walking toward him. He saw me, and a sick, triumphant smile spread across his face. "There he is. My baby brother, the snitch." "Let her go, Ethan. She's my friend," he said, his voice casual. "We're just talking." Through the truck window, I could see Emily shaking her head, mouthing the word no. The police were on their way, but I knew they wouldn't make it in time. Just as Ethan opened the truck door to get in, I saw the glint of metal in his hand. A knife. My blood turned to ice. "Don't do this, Ethan. You've already ruined your life. Don't make it worse." He laughed, a bitter, unhinged sound. "My lawyer says I'm looking at 25 to life. That's my deal. Because of you." He grabbed Emily's arm, yanking her partially out of the truck. She cried out in pain. That's when the cavalry arrived. Ben's truck screeched to a halt behind Ethan, blocking him in. Sophia's car pulled up, and she, Chloe, and Jessica jumped out. More cars arrived. Parents, students, people who had seen the news and heard the rumors. The circle of witnesses grew, their phones all pointed at my brother. He was trapped, cornered by the truth he could no longer outrun. He looked around wildly, his eyes darting between the crowd and the knife, his arrogance finally dissolving into raw panic. The sirens wailed, getting closer. "It's over, Ethan," Ben said, stepping forward. "You're not a killer. You're just a bully who's finally getting caught." For a horrifying second, I thought he was going to turn the knife on himself. The officers tackled him before he could, the knife clattering across the asphalt. He was on the ground, screaming curses and threats as they cuffed him. "I'll kill you," he screamed at me, his face pressed into the pavement. "I'll kill all of you." They dragged him away, a fallen god, his kingdom of lies and violence finally reduced to a single, pathetic man in handcuffs. The aftermath of Ethan's arrest in the school parking lot felt like the end of a long, brutal war. The battlefield was littered with the emotional wreckage of our family, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. My parents were arrested the next day. The ledgers, the flash drive, and the recorded threats were more than enough for the DA to charge them with witness tampering, conspiracy, and child endangerment. Their bail was denied. Coach Peterson was next, after several players, including Ben, came forward to testify about the performance-enhancing drugs and other substances he'd been supplying for years, creating a culture of aggression and entitlement. The entire football program was suspended, and the school principal resigned in disgrace. The house of cards my parents had so carefully constructed had finally collapsed. The court proceedings were swift. Faced with an avalanche of undeniable evidence, Ethan pled guilty. His only request was a face-to-face meeting with me before his sentencing. I agreed, driven by a morbid curiosity and a sliver of pity for the brother I once knew. We met in a sterile prison visiting room, separated by thick glass. He looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, the golden boy glow extinguished, replaced by a hollow-eyed exhaustion. He apologized, not for getting caught, but for what he'd become. He talked about the pressure, the injections that started when he was just 14, the cocktail of chemicals that made him feel invincible and erased his empathy. "It's not an excuse," he said, his voice flat. "But I need you to know that the brother who taught you to throw a football, he was real, once." He was sentenced to 25 years. My parents got 5 and 3, their restaurant sold off to pay legal fees and settlements to the victims. Life after the implosion was strange. Maya and I, now wards of the state, were placed in the temporary custody of my English teacher, Mrs. Davidson. She was a quiet, no-nonsense woman who, it turned out, had suspected something was wrong in my family for years but had been shut down by the school administration every time she tried to raise concerns. Her home was a sanctuary of calm, smelling of cinnamon and old books. It was there that Maya and I began the awkward, painful process of becoming siblings again. We were no longer defined by our family roles, the golden boy, the scapegoat, the forgotten daughter. We were just two kids who had survived a shipwreck, clinging to the same piece of wreckage. The girls Ethan had hurt began to heal, too. They formed a support group, a sisterhood forged in shared trauma but strengthened by a fierce determination to reclaim their lives. Sophia and Chloe became our extended family, joining us for dinners at Mrs. Davidson's house. Ben, stripped of his football scholarship, got a job at a local garage, and started taking classes at the community college, trying to build a life outside the toxic culture he'd been a part of. He and I even grabbed coffee once. It was awkward, but it felt like a necessary step toward closing that chapter. I graduated high school and, with the help of scholarships and a surprising inheritance from a great aunt who'd read about our story in the news, I went to college. I studied psychology, driven by a need to understand the dynamics that had shaped and nearly broken my family. Maya finished high school a few years later and moved to the city to be closer to me. We shared a small apartment, navigating adulthood together, learning how to be a family on our own terms. It wasn't easy. There were still nightmares, moments of anger and grief that would surface without warning. But we had each other, and we had our chosen family, Mrs. Davidson, Sophia, Chloe, and the other girls. We were scarred, but we were healing. We were a testament to the fact that you can build a new life from the ashes of an old one. My parents are out of prison now. We don't speak. I heard my mother tried to blame the whole thing on my father's ambition. My father, in turn, blamed her for spoiling Ethan. They divorced while incarcerated. The blame game was the only thing they had left. Ethan sends a letter once a year, on my birthday. I've never opened one, but I keep them in a box. Maybe someday I'll be ready to read them. Maybe not. For now, it's enough to know that I'm free. I'm no longer just Ethan's loser little brother. I'm Leo. And for the first time in my life, that's more than enough.